So yesterday we made two transactions. We acquired Alex Petrovic from Florida in return for the higher of our thirds. That's the condition on the pick, round pick, and Chris Weidman. The second transaction is we traded Drake Caggiula and Jason Garrison to Chicago for defenseman Brandon Manning and Robin Norell, who's playing in Europe. He's a defenseman playing in Sweden right now. These deals weren't knee-jerk reactions. We looked at essentially the last 7 or 8 games since we lost Klefbom and Russell, and we'd given up. After following the Colorado game, we gave up 31 goals in 7 games and 1 win. So knowing that, seeing how in the last 2 of the last 3 games we've given up over 40 shots a game, so we felt it was imperative that we shore up our defense right now at this critical juncture in the season. Since with the information we know on our injured players, we felt it was time to bring in some established defensemen. Understand the feedback that these aren't top 4 defensemen, but they are good, solid defenders. They both defend hard. They both move well, and it was something we felt we had to do at this point in time. These are 2 players that are going to come in and are going to help our D shore up our D. So that was the rationale behind it. As far as trading a player like Drake Caggiula, he's a player that we signed out of North Dakota as a free agent. He's showing signs of coming around a little bit, but we felt that this was something we had to do, and these were defensemen that we needed, and he had to be in the deal. As far as Manning not playing in Chicago, he was a little bit of a victim of circumstances with respect to the coaching change. With regard to the Manning-Connor stuff, I spoke with Connor last year. We were speaking with Philadelphia on acquiring Brandon Manning, and I pulled Connor aside and I asked him if he had a problem with this, and he said no. He said, in fact, he thinks the player would help us. So I wanted to make sure last year. I did not speak with Connor this year. I told him in advance that we had made the transaction. I can take some questions now.
When you look at Manning specific, what do you see that he's going to do better than what Kevin Gravel brings you? Because if you just look at the depth chart, he's kind of going to be battling him on your left side.
Well, that's where I respectfully disagree with you. He's an established player in the NHL. He's a good, solid defender. He can make some offensive plays. So I think from the offensive perspective, you're going to see more. He's played longer in the league, and he's meaner. Kevin's done well for us, and this is about bringing in some players that can help our defense now. And it doesn't mean we're not out of looking for a higher end D. We've dipped into our LTI money. So we've went above and beyond right now. We'll still continue to look. Our owner's given us the ability to dip into the LTI monies, which we have. But I mean, it's a fair question, Jason. But he's got more experience in the league, and he's shown he can do more at this point. That's our evaluation on him.
Sorry to interrupt. On the timing of these deals, was there a thought when you had 2 defensemen go down at the same time to getting something done right in that moment, or was it a wait-and-see approach just to see how the rest of the guys reacted, or do these deals just take time to come together?
They take time, Brian. They take time. So when Clef went down, it was like, oh boy, we gotta get on a horse now, and it takes time. And it's not to say that we weren't fishing in bigger water.
The price is in that range. At this point, to what you've seen, I assume it's just to try and bring in that type of impact defenseman.
They're not out there right now. They're not out there. They might be out there. They might be out there shortly, but right now it's too early in the season for them to be out there.
Peter, most of the offense has revolved around the 3 guys, and obviously Alex. Caggiula had a few goals. With the guys currently on the team, where do you see
Well, they got to pick it up. I mean, there's no question they got to pick it up. And then even Drake hadn't scored in a month. But I like Drake's grit, and I'm not slagging Drake. He's there are a lot to like about Drake, but other guys have to pick it up without question. In those 7 games, I think we've scored 17 goals, which is about 2.5 goals a game. It's not quite good enough. We're in the bottom quarter of the league in goals scored, but you know what? We have to shore up our goals against.
What do you think you can get out of Manning that Chicago wasn't? He'd been a healthy scratch a lot and was having trouble getting any sort of traction there. Do you have intel? Is there something there you think you can get more out of?
Well, I think just from 30,000 feet and seeing what was happening there, once the new coach came in, Dahlstrom played. Okay, rightly or wrongly, that's what happened. Brandon Manning had a good year last year, and he's a third pair D. Okay, he's a third pair D, and he's got an edge. He's got a little bit of offense to his game. He defends well. So that's the book on him, and what makes us think that there's a bit of a change of scenery aspect here, but we felt that he'd help our group.
In the negotiations, you mentioned it takes a while to get a trade going. I know Drake hasn't scored in his last 7 games, but he's still a guy who has 7 goals, and he has the 4th most goals amongst forwards of the last year and a half in your team. Like, you just don't have a lot of other guys who have produced in a year and a half. So to throw him in the deal, was that difficult for you? Because especially when a guy that you're acquiring, you're adding to your payroll for next year.
Anytime you make a trade with a player that you have time for, like Drake, it's difficult. We felt that we wanted to work from the back end out right now with this problem, and we feel that it's incumbent on the other players to continue to pick up the slack. So yeah, it's difficult, Jason, sure, but those numbers are telling. 31 goals against in 7 games, 1 win. We have to fix that. And knowing what we know about our injured players, injured defensemen, it was time to do something.
So does that mean Chris Russell's not that close to coming back?
I'm not going to comment on that. He's relatively close. Yeah.
Peter, did you talk to Brandon before he got here? And if you did, was he apprehensive about blocking him?
Well, when we made the trade, I talked to him and I told him what I talked to Connor about. So I'm sure there was some apprehension, but I wanted to lead with that, which is what I did.
In the other defensemen you acquired, Petrovic, we've all agreed on her name, but can you just discuss his game and the role you think he can fill, kind of stopgapping here until Lefbom's back?
Range, he's got good range. He's got an element of toughness. He's a defender first. That's more or less his game.
Do you feel your team, because you mentioned Brandon and Alex both have a little toughness in their game, is your team not tough enough in the defensive zone, specifically in front of the net, and is that why your penalty kill continues to struggle?
Define tough. When you defend, it's about closing, right? And you want guys to close and to close hard. And I get we'd love to have a puck moving defenseman. I get that. And they're, as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, they're hard to find. I feel there's been some growth in Caleb's game. Okay, I feel there's been some growth there. I feel that putting these 2D in our lineup takes some of the pressure off of Darnell. I think that's important. I think he's been taxed, and Lars has been taxed. So I think that kind of for the greater good that this is going to spread out the minutes, spread out the defending. As far as toughness, as I said, it's about closing, it's about finishing a play, and I felt we weren't doing that. And that's part personnel and part right here. So we've shored up some of the personnel. These aren't sexy players, and they're not sexy players, and neither is Drake. These are bottom half players that can make a difference.
Peter, when it comes to Andre Sekera, I guess have you realized that he's not going to be in the mix this year?
I'm not going to comment other than it's taking a while.
Peter, do you feel like now you've kind of done your job and now it's giving coach a chance to integrate those 2 players and giving your offense maybe with the return of Alex soon, a chance to get going?
Well, our job as management's never done, but we've addressed a problem that we foresaw here and happening with the two players going down, and we'll continue to, as I said, we'll continue to look to improve the team. But yeah, I mean, it isn't taking the players off the hook either, so they've got to step up also.
Your team went on a pretty good run after you hired Ken, and the losses coincide directly with losing these defensemen. Do you view the turn that the team has taken primarily based on losing those defensemen, or are there signs in other parts of the game that you're concerned about? Like, where do you think this team is at overall outside of these missing defensemen?
Well, if you were to ask me that question before the last game, I'd have a different answer. Last game, I was really disappointed in our effort. I do believe that this slide, but for that last game, had a lot to do with personnel and as far as losing, like I think Clef's he's just hit another level. Like he was playing terrific hockey, and Russ is, he's a good solid defender and a good high character guy. So I am not attributing our slip to solely that, but that's a good chunk to do with it.
What do you expect from Gambardella? What's he going to add?
He's had a good year. He's a gritty guy. He's not the prettiest player. He's a really strong stick. I don't know if he's going to play tonight or not. But he very smart. He's really improved his game. He's the leading scorer down there. Very smart, very conscientious, and has like he's a 2.5 skater, what we call, like 2.5 out of 5. But he does have deceptive quickness when there's a loose puck.
And lastly, you have two 20-year-old wingers now. It looks to be in your top 9, and neither one's yet found a lot of offensive traction. Peter, when you look at a lot of guys who come in, if they're ready to score right away, they usually score right away, or they're down in the minors. How do you balance that with those two? And do you look at the overall benefit to their growth? If they're not producing here, are they better off if they can produce in the AHL?
Yeah, that was a discussion about 2 months ago we had too. They've both acquitted themselves very well in the minors, and we felt it was time to bring them up. And we hope for growth here in good opportunities here.
Any concern that with Puljujärvi going so long without really putting up any offense, that this is the idea for this to develop into an offensive player, that hurts his offensive development?
Well, but for the last couple of games, I've actually really liked Jesse's game and his development. I thought he's been getting some looks. I think he's making a lot of good decisions. I think I'll put him in the rest of the group the last couple of games. But I think that'll come. And I think I just I seen him down there, and he has to do it up here now. He can do it down there.